Hey guys, welcome to another analysis video. Today's video, as you no doubt can tell by the title, is green Tome Infantry units. So, to my surprise, there's actually quite a few, and all of them have gone weapon refines at this point. Besides, I guess, young Azura, who kind of has her own preference weapon, but we probably won't expect a refine for years from now. But with that being said, these guys actually have a lot of usage. Now, I'm gonna foreshadow this. I'm not gonna cover both Robin and Soren, who definitely could be used in more supportive roles outside of Ether Raids. So this video does cover Ether Raids, both on offense and defense, and optimal ways to use it. And unfortunately for Robin, female Robin and Soren, I don't really feel they have too great of a place in Ether Raids. They can be used, but the other guys definitely do a lot of what they do just better in a lot of cases, especially with someone like Bowie having a Raven Tome now. So, yeah, let's go jump into it. What do we got today? To start us off, we got none other than Bowie. Now, initially, when I first looked at Bowie and his weapon refine, I thought he wouldn't be too great, and to be fair, I don't think he's the most optimal of investment choices even now. But one thing I definitely appreciate about Bowie, and this is mostly targeted to newer players or people just looking to get into Ether Raids, is that he's honestly kind of low investment if you are kind of starting out either as a new player or you just don't know what to invest into. Now, I've shown him here with bonus doubler and null C disrupt investments, but that's kind of like the peak performance of Bowie. And his A slot can be other things too, like fort defense res, or even something as simple as like attack res 2 if you have fodder lying around for that, for instance. And his B slot, you could use like dull range, for instance, or other things too. What I really want to point out here with Bowie is that he doesn't actually require any of this exclusive fodder to do his job as a flexible tank. Now, he is I've kind of been back and forth on this, on whether I think he's better in Astro or Light, and I feel like he can be used in either. The problem with using him in Light is that you run into more magical damage, and especially more of his hard counters, like Sothis, who you can't counterattack against, and Yoon, who happens to just do magic damage, and he doesn't like taking magic damage. Despite that, though, you don't really, he has close counter built into everything that isn't dragons, so that's really good. And because dragons aren't really too great on a defense team, minus Sothis, he does a pretty decent job. His real biggest counter is actually something like Lolina and Sothis, and beyond that he has pretty reasonable matchups across the board. The fact that he has a Raven Tome built in is what really sets him apart. So if you have trouble with stuff like dazzles or bows or daggers, which a lot of other matchups tend to have a problem against, Bowie handles those really well. He has low res, but if you run into a dazzle healer, and even if you don't have null C disrupt, he's actually not going to take too much damage because he's reducing their effective attack by 20%. Take a Veronica with like 55 attack, and all of a sudden she's down to 44 because of the Raven Tome on Bowie. So he naturally just takes off a huge chunk of an enemy's effectiveness just by having that Raven Tome. So like I said, if you're just like starting out or you don't really have a tank option, Bowie's actually pretty good just because he can do pretty well. He even has a decent matchup against Ophelia just by being green. He does require investment, and honestly, if you have Bowie invested even just a little bit, then this could be a decent option. However, there are always better options than this, and you should probably review some of the other unit analysis videos to get a better idea of tanks I've covered. I'm not going to promote Bowie too much, but this refine is really good, at least in terms of resources. And if you've already considered building Bowie, you buff him up a little bit and he gets the job done against a lot of really annoying matchups that otherwise would exist in Ether Raids. Okay, moving on, we got no doubt everyone's favorite, Nino. Now with Nino, I'm gonna have to say that it's kind of rare to actually see people build her this way. I've seen a lot of Ninos because it's probably one of the few things that you would see in 2017, 2018. People built Nino for a long time. She got her refine, and of course she kind of had a resurgence due to that, and the refine really does help a lot. But Nino's role in Ether Raids pretty much comes down to Blade Tome Vantage, because she has the stats for it. She has a really decent, really good speed stat, a really decent attack stat, and an HP threshold which is just enough at max investment. So 56 HP beats out Tactics Room, beats out Panic Manor level 4, not 5 though, which is unfortunate, but realistically not many other Blade Mages can really get that high up. Her biggest problem tends to be like Panic, which you will see. So Panic Manor and Dazzle Staffs that carry Panic, these are big problems to her, but there are some, you know, some ways that you just won't run into this, and you can use Nino pretty reliably without that. Dull range is also a big one. I gotta give a shout out to that. People who do use dull range are thinking ahead for people that play into them using stuff like Nino. Nino's defensive res actually also pretty good. Running stuff like Brazen Attack res helps her. Res Smoke helps soften up your targets. And honestly, her best partner, and I think a lot of people, besides the Dancer, Dancers always work, but her best partner is actually something like that. So if you happen to have one, and especially if it's merged, you can set yourself up with a really nice 2-charge Miracle here, because you're going to reduce Miracle from 5 to 2. Nino has like 1 engagement on a unit, and Miracle's already ready to go. So there's almost no scenario where she won't die, where she'll die in like 1 round, unless an AoE brings her to 1 HP, which is really unlikely when you factor in buffs and such. So if you already have a built Nino, you definitely should use it like this, and that'll get you in, it'll cover so many matchups just by the nature of Nino being so good as a Vantage unit. When you buff her up and she gets like 20-30 additional attack just like that, you're good to go. So Nino, awesome Blade Mage, would highly recommend. Moving on, we got our boy Merric, and as a natural partner to Merric, you're going to have Sothis, of course. So with all these units, keep in mind they are blessed appropriately. My blurb of info is right below me. So for example, Merric here has 2 Sothises buffing him up. You may not want to run 2 Sothises on a defense team. You might be better off running like Sothis and Yoon just to have some flexibility. But with Merric, he's really good on a defense team, and might be even better than Sonya in a lot of cases because of his really good bulk, ability to pulse others, merge ability, and his nuke is comparable. Dark Excalibur does give you 10 extra damage because it's a Wodow effect. And the special acceleration means that his high HP is pretty much a non-factor because he just needs to get pulsed by 1 or 2 units, depending on whether you use Quick Impulse or not. And for example, Sothis there is kind of hard to set up like this, but if you do it, she can run frontline, she can set up someone like Merric plus everyone else on the team, and you have yourself your whole team full of infantry pulse nukes and such. So, Sha is still alive. Really hard hitting dude. You're going to see 30-40 damage and such easily, maybe up to 50 depending on what he's hitting. Love it. Would recommend. Okay, and finally, if you've watched my Grail video, you would know that I'm already a fan of young Azura because, well, she's a dancer, and dancers are support units. Support units will be timeless. Stuff like Male Corrin has aged so well over the years, and I'm pretty sure he was refined like in early 2018. So, you know, that is an example of good aging. Now, if you happen to have a Hibiscus Tome from a random summer release, that's pretty much your only supportive green tome. If you don't have it, then you may want to consider just any other green tome, something like Gronel, to refine it. The refine is important here. Young Azura can reach a res stat that is capable of soaking chill res depending on what your tank ends up being. For example, I covered Bowie earlier in this video. Max invested Bowie had pretty much 39 res. This Azura is only +1, 3 flowers for a res boost, res refined tome, fury 3, and already has enough res to cover Bowie in chill res, assuming both got buffed by the res stat. So yeah, decent option. Dancing, singing support's always good, and there's not much more to say. You guys have used dancers by now to know what I'm talking about. If you use young Azura, she's also at max invest, a decent option on a defense team. Now, she doesn't necessarily compete with Bridal Fjorm's isolation check. A merged up near max invested Bridal Fjorm will still out HP a young Azura, but young Azura is still very high up there and will win most checks. The beauty is, of course, you can use Spectral Tome on defense, which, as we mentioned earlier, is panic coverage. And panic coverage is important for people who do use tank strategies. You hit them. So if Azura chooses to attack rather than dance, which if she's being baited, you know, a lot of problems with ranged dancers is the fact that they're baitable. Like, the biggest win against Legendary Azura on a defense team is actually just bait Legendary Azura, and she never gets the opportunity to dance. Now, if you see something like this young Azura with a Spectral Tome being baitable, you're going to think twice about buffing your tank. So it's kind of like a catch-22. You buff your tank, you get panicked. You don't buff your tank, you're missing out on stats that otherwise would be needed to tank that team. So you got to think twice about tanking her instead of, you know, allowing that sing capability to happen. So young Azura ends up being a pretty strong option, and this pretty much covers, honestly, all the green tomes. Again, if you've already invested in one of them, reconfigure, prepare them for AR. They definitely have a place, all of them. Even Robin, female Robin and Soren, who I didn't cover, can be used both on AR defense and offense. Someone like Robin is questionable because you do need mixed comps, but this pretty much shows you that you can pretty much invest into any of these and find a place for them. I was on, as I mentioned earlier, I'm surprised by Bowie's flexibility and kind of like resource saving. You see a lot of these builds and you see a lot of these units I cover, and they do end up being high resources in one way or another, whether that comes from feathers, grails, just exclusive fodder and whatnot. There is planning that's needed. So you watch these videos, you get yourself an idea of what to plan for in the future, and you got to save orbs and target those specific fodder choices. But with someone like Bowie, you could literally just look at your barracks right now, see 11 copies of Bowie, and put one together as a possible tank option. He won't probably be the best option if you choose to, you know, save fodder and make that happen, but he's not a terrible one, and that's what I came to realize after reflecting on this video. So I guess that leaves me with the question for you guys is, who has surprised you? Maybe someone you've invested in and performed better than you thought, or just someone in the past that you may have invested into and then all of a sudden started using them in like 2019. So like 2017 units you invested in all of a sudden became good in 2019. For example, Nino before Refine was questionably worse, in a lot of cases worse than someone like Soren, but with a Refine came out to be a lot better in a lot of cases. So even as a support option, even Attack Wave ends up being like a decent support option in Arena, for example. At least every other turn you have yourself some attack bonuses. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, that pretty much covers the video, guys. Give the video a thumbs up, sub to the channel if you haven't already, leave a comment below, and that's it from me today, guys. I love you all. See you in the next one. Peace.